welcome to my YouTube channel. Here's a brief introduction about myself. I am a BTech graduate and these are the subjects that I teach. So if you would like to connect with me for a one-on-one or a group session, please check out the description below. So this particular video in I will be discussing the last 10 years questions based on structural part of organic chemistry asked in ICSE. So moving on with the first question, that is from ICSE 2016, and in this particular question they have told us to draw the structural formula of, and the first one is that is 2-methyl propane. So first of all, regarding propane, propane means there are in total 3 carbons. So I will be drawing up over here 3 carbons. Later on, they have told us that it is 2-methyl. It means that at the second carbon, there is a methyl group. So what does methyl group means? It means CH3. So over here, I will be drawing a carbon, and since it is methyl, it will be CH3. The remaining part of each carbon will contain hydrogen bonds. Hydrogen atoms. So this is the structural formula for 2-methyl propane. Moving on with the second one, and in the second one it is given to us ethanoic acid. Regarding the acid portion, we know that the acid contains COOH. How to do that? So C double bonded with O followed by ONH. This whole thing means COOH. Since ethanoic eth means 2 and since it is an acid, we have to consider the carbon of the acid. So I will be just attaching a single carbon and the remaining part will contain the hydrogen atoms. This is the structural formula for ethanoic acid. Moving on with the third one, it is given to us butane 2-ol. How many carbons are there in butane? In total there are 4 carbons. Let us draw the 4 carbon first. Then at the second carbon it must be a alcoholic group. So I will be drawing an OH over here and the remaining part will contain the hydrogen atoms. So this is the structure for butane 2-ol. Now moving on with the next questions, that is for ICSE 2017, and the first structure that is given to us is simply 2,3 dimethyl butane. So our first job is to draw 4 carbons for the butane, and at the second and third carbon place there is a methyl group. So I can say if this is the second, this is the third carbon. So there is a methyl group and there is a methyl group. The remaining part will contains the hydrogen atoms. So this is the structural formula for 2,3 dimethyl butane. Regarding another thing, as we can see that I am writing wholly the CH3 portion. In examination, you can also write it as in this manner also. Moving on with the next one, that is diethyl ether. Since there is an ether group, so we know the ether group is written as O, and on the both hand sides there will be alkyl groups attached to it. Since it is diethyl, so on the right hand side there will be an ethyl group and on the left hand side there will be an ethyl group. We just need to finish the remaining bonds with the hydrogen atoms. So this is the structural formula for diethyl ethyl ether. Then moving on with the third one, and it states that it is propanoic acid. How many carbons are there in propane? So there are 3 carbons. So since it is an acid, I will be counting the acid carbon as one of the carbon. So in total I have to do 2 more carbons over here. The remaining part will contain the hydrogen atom. So this represents propanoic acid. Moving on with ICSE 2018 question, and in this particular question they have asked us to write the structural formula of two isomers of butane. So for this we will be starting off with the first, that is the normal butane, and for that we will be drawing the normal structure for that. So the remaining bonds will contain the hydrogen atoms. So this is simply the first isomer of butane. Regarding the second isomer, I will be reducing one carbon from the main chain and I will be putting that carbon in one of its branch. So for that I will be drawing up 3 carbons over here and a carbon will come in one of the branch. We just now need to finish the bonds with the hydrogen atoms. So this is what the second isomer for butane. Then moving on with ICSE 2019 question, and in this particular question they have told us to give the structural formula of acetic acid. Now the main thing over here is that we need to know like what is the IUPAC name for acetic acid, since it is a common name. So the important thing is that the IUPAC name of acetic acid is ethanoic acid. So if someone doesn't know the IUPAC name of acetic acid, he or she will be losing the marks over here. So we have already done it. Ethanoic acid is simply C double bond O along with OH and a carbon attached to it. The remaining bond will contain the hydrogen atom. So this is what the structural formula of acetic acid. Moving on with the question that were asked in 2020, and the first one over here is simply 2,2 dimethyl pentane. So firstly I will be writing 5 carbons for the pentane, and at the second carbon, if I am considering this as the second carbon, both over here contains a methyl group. Since it is 2,2, the remaining part will contain simply the hydrogen atoms. Then moving on with the second one, which is methanol. Now what is methanol? Methanol is simply CH3OH. So firstly I have to draw the single carbon, 3 hydrogens will be attached to it and the remaining one will have an alcoholic part. Then draw the structures of isomers of pentane. So as we know, in total there are 3 isomers of pentane. So in this case, firstly we will start off with the main one or the normal one. So the normal one will contain all the 5 carbons. The remaining part over here will be associated with hydrogen atoms, as we all know. So I will be writing over here the hydrogen. Then for the second isomer, I will be reducing one of the carbon and putting it in the branch portion. So the main chain will contain 4 carbons and you can place it anywhere. I am placing it over here. I can draw H, H and H, and the remaining hands or the bonds of all these carbons will contain the hydrogens. Then what about the third isomer? So I will be reducing another carbon from the main chain. It means that in the main chain there will be 3 carbons and 2 carbons in the branch. So this is how we are going to draw the structure for the third isomer of pentane. Let us move on with the next year question, that is from ICSE 2022. And in the first one they have asked us to draw pentanal. Now what does this Al mean? It means aldehyde group. So what is the aldehyde group? It is CHO. And in this one also we have to count the carbon of the functional group. So firstly, since pentanal, let us draw 5 carbons. Over here it will be simply a double bond O and an H. This represents the CHO part, and the remaining will contain simply the hydrogen atoms. So this is the structural formula for pentanal. Now for the next one they have told us to draw the structural diagram for propanol. So propane contains 3 carbons, so this will contain an OH group, and the remaining portion will contain the hydrogen atoms. This is the structural formula or diagram for propanol. Now what about the third one? It is given to us that it is 2-butene. So what does 2 represent over here? It represents that the double bond will be present between the second and the third carbon. So it means that first, this is the third, a double bond over here, and this. Now this will contain 3 bonds. This will contain only one because its valencies satisfy over here 1, 2, 3 and 4. Over here 2 and these 3. So this is the structure for 2-butene. Moving on with ICSE 2023 question, and it is given to us 2-chlorobutane. It means at the second carbon there will be a chlorine halogen group. So for the first one I can write 4 carbons. Considering this as the second, I will be writing chlorine over here, and the remaining will contain the hydrogen atom. So this is the structural formula for 2-chlorobutene. Then for the second one, it is given to us methanal. So what is methanal? Methanal is simply HCHO. So for this, I will be drawing the CHO group, that is aldehyde, and a single hydrogen over here. Then for the third one, it is given to us but2ine. It simply means, like the previous question, that between the second and the third carbon, now there will be a triple bond present over there. So a single bond followed by a triple bond and this. Now 3. These 2 valencies are already saturated because as we can see there are total 4 bonds. So this is how the structural diagram or the formula for butane 2-ine looks. Then moving on with the specimen paper question from ICSE 2024, it is given to us 1-propanal. Since 1 doesn't have any such significance, the structure will be only propanal. Now propane means 3 carbons and there is an aldehyde group, so we need to count the carbon of the aldehyde group. So this is our aldehyde group. Attached with it will be two carbons. So this is how propanal or 1-propanal looks. Moving on with the second one, it is given to us that 1, 2 dichloroethane. How many carbons are there in ethane? In total there are two carbons. First is the first carbon, second is the second carbon. At the first and second carbon there will be a chlorine group, and the remaining part will simply contain the hydrogen atoms. So this is 1, 2 dichloroethane. Regarding the third one, we have already discussed in this video, so it will simply look like this. That is butene. Now let's move on to the question from ICSE 2024. For the first one, it is given to us 3-methyl pentane. So simply we need to draw the 5 carbons first. Considering this as the first, second, so this will be the third carbon. At third carbon there is a methyl group, and the remaining will be associated with the hydrogen atoms. Simply I will be writing the hydrogen over here. Then this will be the structural formula for 3-methyl pentane. Moving on with the second one, it is simply written to us that it is propyne. Now propane means 3 carbons. For the first and second there will be a triple bond and a single, so one valency contains over here and this remaining. So this is the structural diagram for propyne. Methanol we have already discussed. It is simply the aldehyde group attached with an hydrogen. So now moving on to our last slide, and that is the questions from ICSE 2025 specimen paper, and the first one contains propanoic acid. So firstly we have to draw the acid part. Attached to it will be two carbons. So this is how propanoic acid looks. Then for the second one, it is given to us pentane 2-ol. So firstly, pentane means 5 carbons. If I am considering this as first, this is second. So at the second carbon there will be an OH group. So simply this is how our pentane 2-ol looks like. Then for the third one, it is given to us 2, 2 dibromobutane. Firstly, I will be drawing the 4 carbons over here, and since I am considering this as the second carbon, so at the second carbon there are in total 2 bromine groups, and the remaining will simply contains the hydrogen atoms. So this is the structural diagram for 2, 2 dibromobutane. So these were some of the questions based on structural diagram questions which will be coming up in your upcoming chemistry paper of ICSE. I hope you did like this video. So do comment, share with your friends and families. Thank you.